we're going to make here is a simple bead out of Bocote wood. I love the Bocote wood. It's really pretty grain. I'm not going to bring the tailstock up because my Talon chuck here with the pin jaws holds the stock really well. I've only got about maybe 2 inches sticking out, and I've got probably 3 inches buried back in the chuck, so it's stable, and it's pretty tight in there anyway for the tailstock. So I'll get my bowl gouge, which makes a great roughing tool, and I'll just rough this thing down round real quick. Looks pretty good. Now the bead that we're going to turn here is going to be what I call just a football bead. It's going to have just a general football shape, and it'll be flat on the ends. Bring this up just a little bit. I'll start by knocking this corner off. Now I want to try to match this curve on the other side, so I want to kind of eyeball it and get the distance. And start working this side down. And the object here ultimately is to have the diameter at this end of the bead match the diameter at this end of the bead, and have those two connected by a nice smooth curve. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not going to bother measuring, because once this bead is strung up, no one's going to be able to tell the difference if you're off by 1/1000th or so. So I've got a nice little football shaped bead now, and I can go ahead and sand. If you're careful with your cuts, then you can skip right to the finer sandpaper. It's still got a flat spot there that I'm going to take out. Okay, so now we'll do a little sanding, and I'm going to start with 320. I'm not going to take a whole lot of sanding here. Small piece of wood. So you want to keep the sandpaper moving so you don't get heat buildup. For the 320. I'll go to the 400 and work it until I see a little bit of a shine there. surface. Alright, so there it is, nice and smooth and ready to drill. Okay, before the drill though, we'll put a little friction polish on there. I slow the lathe down, put just a couple of drops of friction polish. This is Hutt's Crystal Coat. I apply it with the lathe running fairly slow so it doesn't swing it into my eyeballs. And then once I've got it on there, go ahead and bring the speed up. Burn it in real good. If you see a little smoke, that's actually a good thing. And you're getting that friction polish set. Alright, there we go. So got a nice finished bead, and now we've got to drill a hole through it. Without a hole, the bead is not much good. You must be able to string it. So I am going to put just a little dimple in the end of the bead with my skew. And the idea here is we want a little place to receive the drill bit as it comes in to keep the drill bit from wandering around. If the drill bit starts to wander as soon as it enters the bead, then you're not going to have a well-centered hole on the other side. So I've got a Jacob's chuck that's just mounted on a number 2 Morse taper. I've got that in the tailstock. Lock that down, slow the lathe down, you don't need a lot of speed for this, and just let the drill bit ease into that pocket that I just created with the skew, and it should just nestle right in there and start on a nice smooth path through the bead. When the worms start coming out, then I'll back it up, clear the shavings out of the flutes of the drill bit. There's no need to heat the drill bit up unnecessarily now. I'm only going to drill a little bit past the bead. I'm not going to try to drill way into the stock, because no matter how well the drill bit is running, as it goes through the bead, it's going to start to wander as it gets deeper and deeper into the stock. And then the rest of the stock, instead of being able to turn another bead, you're kind of messed up because you don't want a bead with an off-center hole. They don't look good strung up. Okay, so 2 options for parting this off. One option being just a good old parting tool. So my thin Sorby tool here, I can come in there and part that puppy off and try to match that flat side here, try to match that diameter. On smaller things, more delicate things, where you don't want to run the risk of going in there with a parting tool, you can actually take a little saw like this. This one is from Testors. I think they call it a razor saw. It's got an extremely thin kerf. I don't know if you can see that. It's probably about as thick as a heavy sheet of typing paper. And really fine teeth, and it pulls, or it cuts on the pull, so it's easy to control, which is nice. I use that on the earrings and small beads and crosses and things like that. But in this case, this is a fairly beefy bead. I'm just going to part it off with a parting tool. Now, one thing to remember about this thing's got friction finish on it, and even though the friction finish is technically dry, it's not really cured, and you can impart fingerprints to it if you pinch it. Go to pick it up, or if you handle it too much. So I'm going to part this off, and I'm just going to let it fall into my hands. Hopefully it won't fall onto the floor, but I'm just going to let it fall into my hands, and I'm not going to grasp it. I'm going to cradle it. So a little more speed. So I want to make sure that the right side of my parting tool is lined up perfectly with the end of the bead. I don't want it too far toward the tailstock, because it makes the bead now asymmetrical, and the diameters will be different. And I don't want it too far to the headstock, because then I've got this weird little flange on the end. So come in nice and slow, and take your time and line the tool up exactly with the end of your bead. Just a little more speed. So I've got my fingers under the bead ready to catch it. I'm using my thumb to stabilize the tool, and I'm just going to ease into it, and off it comes. Now I'm not going to grasp it, I'm just going to cradle it. But I do want to show you one thing. No matter how good you are with the drill bit, that hole is going to be slightly off center, and you're going to have this little lip, this flashing around your hole. And I don't do anything with this right now. I set the bead aside, let the finish cure completely, and then I can take an X-Acto knife or even my thumbnail, and I can knock that little bit off of there before I string it up. So I'll show you the other ones here that I've got. They're all roughly the same size and roughly the same shape, and they should look fairly nice when they're strung together. And so you can see there the beginnings of a nice little necklace. I like a leather cord in the 2mm range, which is perfect for these holes, and I might put an accent bead in between, or some silver beads in between. But there you go, easy enough to turn, and certainly easy enough to string when you're done. Alrighty, thanks for watching.